We're going to begin Yacht Engineering Week 2023 at Pantropic Power in West Palm Beach. We're joined for this segment by Brian Fowler, Head of New Engine Sales for Caterpillar in the South Florida District. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Paul.
Thanks for being here, buddy. You know, I call you a repeat offender. You've been a great supporter of IYBA's educational events. You've been a participant in our Yacht Engineering Week for several years. And I want to say thanks to Pantropic Power for your continued support in the title sponsorship role at Yacht Engineering Week.
Of course, we love the opportunity.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Why do you think it's so important for Caterpillar and Pantropic to support this educational component?
Well, like you said, it's an opportunity to educate everyone in the industry about things that they may or may not be aware of, things that have changed over time. They may be new to brokerage, so it's our opportunity to kind of give them the information they need to better help those that they're offering to.
So you talk about things changing over time, and you know, we think diesel engines, they're consistent, they last for a really long time. I started in the boating world when gasoline engines were what we had. There were very few diesel engines in a pleasure application. And when diesel engines came forward, one of the big things that rung true for us was the life expectancy of the diesel engines. In today's marketplace, the 21st century, Brian, what's the life expectancy of a diesel engine? I remember a time that I would go in the engine room and there was a sticker on the side of the engine that actually said, this engine is expected to last X number of hours. I don't see that anymore.
No, we did. That was a way to do it in the past, but over the years we've learned that there's a better way. Because based on usage, someone may never reach that amount of hours if they did, say, 100 hours a year, or someone that does 2,000 hours a year is going to blow right through that. So it was misleading on the far ends. It was a good middle ground, but
it's one of those situations where the marketing department gets schooled by the legal department, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we found that now the best source of what's the life expectancy is really performance based. You can take oil sampling, which is blood work of your engine. You can have routine inspections done and follow the maintenance schedule, and you'll have potentially unlimited runtime until you see these issues, not based on a specific hour.
So what are we looking for in oil sampling? I highly doubt we're looking for cholesterol and blood sugar, right?
I mean, the diesel engine's version of that, for sure.
Okay.
Sodium's a bad one to find.
Sodium's a bad one, and we have a lot of sodium in this environment.
Yes, we do.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
So we're looking for things like Fe for iron. We're looking for chrome. We're looking for aluminum.
Correct.
We're looking for we're looking for
all
metals,
the things that you've
correct?
forgotten since your chemistry class.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So, yeah. I mean, different parts of the engine have different metals. So by taking routine sampling, it's really important, got to say, that it's not one sample is going to give you what you need. You need to take a sample, because engines are just like people. They're all different. So engines are going to wear differently from one to the next. So you're not after one sample, you're after a baseline through a series of samples.
Is what we want to see.
So all the trends.
We want to see if iron is increasing over a period of time, and if that's
Correct.
the case, we know that there's a certain component that's wearing.
Correct.
If we see aluminum increasing, if we see silicon increasing, or sometimes we see a spike in silicon, and maybe that's because there's been a repair done on the engine and they used gasketing material that is now finding its way into the oil.
You've seen some reports.
I've seen a few reports, and the next
Yeah.
report, there is no silicon, or there's a very low incidence of silicon. So trending is what's critically important.
Most important.
Because that tells us what's wearing and what isn't.
Correct.
So we talk about the life expectancy of an engine. Tell me some examples of engines that you've seen last really long periods of time.
I mean, there's a lot of, we run across a lot of engines over the years that have 30, 40,000 hours on them. But others need complete overhaul after 1,000 hours. And of course that guy's not happy, but it's just based on how you take care of it, the environment it's in, the amount of usage, maintenance,
so
and just
you said
sheer luck
something there that makes a lot of difference, the environment in which it's in.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about an industrial environment, and while these marine applications are the same engines that are used in an industrial application, if we have an industrial application that's particularly dirty environment, all the filtration in the world isn't going to give us clean air. So we're going to see contaminants in that motor that are going to increase the wear factors way early in the game. So Brian, we were chatting a little while ago before we started filming, and you made reference to me about an incredibly extreme example. And I think, in fact, this was in a military application of Caterpillar engines. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Sure. There are a number of vessels out there that have 50-year-old original Cat engines in them. Granted, they've been overhauled over the years, but Cat still produces parts for them. And if you are bringing a Cat dealer and have them on board to do an inspection, and they can do an overhaul to what we call OPC, overhaul protection coverage, which is essentially mirrors a brand new engine warranty, but it's done at the time of overhaul, and there are different levels of that.
So what you're saying is that you can take an older Caterpillar engine and through the programs that Caterpillar offers and define checklists and meeting all the criteria, you can bring it back to a new engine spec and even be offered something called OPC.
Correct.
Which is
overhaul protection
coverage. That's amazing.
It is. It's a handy tool. I mean, that's an extreme example, but it goes to show you that, you know, if you can do it on a vessel of that age and that size, that your 20-year-old sport fish boat that's getting sold for the third time, it's eligible for that. It's a perfect opportunity to freshen up an engine for a new owner and give them peace of mind with like new engine coverage on a boat that's not brand new.
So that brings to mind a great scenario that we're faced with in the brokerage boat sales market all the time. I've got a client, actually I don't have any clients anymore, Brian, but let's hypothetically say I have a client who is a tournament fisherman and he wants to buy a boat that's going to be a great boat for the tournament circuit, and he's decided that he wants a Spencer boat. And he finds a Spencer boat that's an early 2000 model boat that has 5,800 hours on it. So generally we would think that that's a fairly good bit of time on the engines, and in his negotiating process he's going to use that to his advantage, and he's going to go after the seller for price. So we get the deal done. The guy's the owner of a boat now that has fairly high time engines on it. What can we do to give that guy genuine peace of mind? Because if I understand correctly, that kind of falls in a gray area with prescribed maintenance thresholds and so on. Talk to me about that.
That's a great example, because it does kind of fall in that middle ground between your routine maintenance, which of course, how often is a vessel for sale going to hit right at maintenance intervals? So
it never does, and the price will reflect that.
Yeah, so that's great. In a case like that, it'd be a perfect opportunity to reach out and consider doing a top end with OPC. That gets you the top of the engine opened up. They can inspect, go further if needed. If not, new heads, valves, injectors, turbo cartridges, you're out the door. You're guaranteed another 5,000-6,000 hours, and you can do all that with like new warranty. Use an OPC program.
So the OPC program has a checklist requirement.
Yes.
We need to disassemble the top of the motor. We pretty much figure it's going to need head work. So we're going to be doing valves. We're going to be...
Drop a reman head on it.
Okay, so we drop a reman head on it, but while we have it opened up, it gives us the opportunity. Do we mic the cylinders? What do we do to check the lower end of the engine to make sure that it's going to stay together with all this freshening up on the top?
Sure. Well, once you've got that opened up, it's easy to inspect the liners for wear, scoring. You can use crosshatch still there, items like that, and then take it from there.
So you just mentioned liners. That's an important consideration. A lot of the veterans in the industry are familiar with what you're saying when you say a liner, but there are also a lot of veterans in the industry that remember that we didn't have liners, that we used to use a parent bore on the engines. So let's talk about that briefly. What is the difference between parent bore and a liner? How does that apply, and where do we determine in the engineering phase of the engines where we're going to use a parent bore and where we're going to use a linered engine?
Right, okay, so the difference is mainly the cylinder block. Do the pistons run in the block itself, or do they run in a removable, replaceable liner?
So the parent bore would be the rings are actually touching the metal of the cylinder walls that are the block.
Correct.
Okay.
And the reason you still see a difference in engines, that some engines have them and some don't, is you have to make the block size significantly larger and heavier to be able to have enough meat to be able to put a sleeve in.
So you have to have enough real estate there to accommodate the liner.
Right. So in our smaller line, when you're trying to have a small, compact, high horsepower engine, it's really just not feasible to have a linered engine and check all the other boxes.
We won't be able to fit the footprint that we need in
Right.
order to have this application be reasonable.
Right, but there's nothing to say that parent bore engines are bad. I mean, you were talking about probably 3208s.
That's the one I remember.
You know, which is
or 3160s.
gloriously got a throwaway engine tag on it, but they stopped building that engine over 20 years ago, and there's thousands of them running today. So I mean, I don't really know that you can call that a throwaway engine, because it's a parent bore.
But I think that's an interesting thing for our audience to understand, is that there are certain applications where a parent bore makes sense, where we're actually running the piston up and down in the block, that the rings are meeting the cylinder walls that are a part of the material in the block, whereas there are other applications that other manufacturers used to promote as a big thing, but the reality of it is Caterpillar's been doing it for a really long time as well, and that is a sleeve or a liner. And that is where we can return an engine back to original factory specifications by removing the piston, removing the liner, pressing a new liner in, dropping in new pistons and rings, connecting the connecting rod back up to the crank with new bearings, and we're back to day one
Original spec.
factory spec.
Original spec without having to bore it out and go oversize.
And when we're talking about our OPC, that's one of the things that we look at when we have the head off, is we measure the lower end of the engine to see that it's still within compliance and that it's going to meet the needs of the power demands going forward.
Right. And that would be part of the checklist that Caterpillar would say they would offer you that coverage based on the results of the mandatory parts that were replaced, and then the inspection items.
So some items after inspection we may determine are within spec and you can continue to use, or they may be outside of spec and they're required to be replaced. But it doesn't mean that everything on the checklist has to be changed. The mandatory items, the optional or the mandatory items, the measurable items, and then the optional items.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got 3 tiers of inspection before we determine exactly whether we'll qualify for OPC. That's a great program.
It's very helpful for a lot of this age boat. You know, these guys there's a lot of 20-year-old boats out there that people think that they're on their own and they're going to have to take a gamble in buying this boat with this 20-year-old engines and cross their fingers and hope for the best, but it's not the case.
Peace of mind is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So Brian, while your area of expertise is new engine sales, and you're obviously familiar with the warranties on the engines, and we've talked a little bit about OPC, we have people that deal with specifically those issues for Pantropic and for Caterpillar.
Correct. Yeah, if we could bring on our customer service rep, Walter Robledo.
Walter Robleto's here to join us.
How you doing,
Awesome.
guys?
Hey Walter, how are you?
Doing great.
Thanks for joining us. Let's
Yeah,
take a peek at the motors and talk about
Yeah.
warranties and what we do with
Yeah.
warranty. So as Brian had mentioned, thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
As Brian had
Thanks for having us.
mentioned, one of the things that we have to do is we have to do some form of inspection
That is correct.
on the engines. So EPE is something we talked about in a segment last year. Let's do a quick review on what is EPE, what does it mean, and what is EP not?
Okay. So EP is Engine Performance Evaluation.
Okay.
And basically we have a authorized Caterpillar technician go out there, and he'll go ahead and evaluate the engine. We'll take oil and coolant samples.
Okay.
And we'll take oil and coolant samples, we'll do an engine evaluation, and we'll do a performance data, we'll do a sea trial.
So when we
Yeah.
do that, we hook the computer up to it, we
Right.
do a data dump
Yes.
to see how the engine has been run, fuel burns, temperatures, all the different parameters to make sure they're within spec. We do oil samples, as Brian and I had talked about earlier, to do an evaluation of all of our wear metals and see where our levels are with everything and if there's any red flag. What else do we do in an EPE, in an engine performance evaluation?
Well, we also do like a visual inspection, and we'll also do a walk around with the customer, tell them about the engine, tell them, you know, this engine has this amount of performance. Basically introduce the customer to the engine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's performing at 93% of her spec, 100% of her spec, as the case may be.
Yes.
So it's a true evaluation from beginning to end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's not a engine survey, it's an evaluation, our engine evaluation.
And that's an important differentiation to make,
Yeah.
because a survey is one thing and an evaluation by the manufacturer is another.
That is correct.
And what we're going to determine in an EPE is the percentage at which this engine is operating to its new engine spec.
That is correct.
All right, so Walter, we talked briefly in our discussion about extended engine performance evaluation with a visual inspection. Let's take a peek at a motor that we have standing up tall and see what are we looking for in our visual inspection.
Well, we got the seawater inlet here. We want to look if there's any leaks, any corrosion. We want to make sure that the belts are tightened correctly, they're tightened. We want to make sure there's no oil leaks or exhaust leaks. We want to make sure that the fittings are not leaking or cracked.
So you'll walk around the engine and you'll check all the touch points to make sure that everything looks right first.
That is correct.
The next thing you'll do is a data dump from the EPU, which will tell you the parameters that the engine's been running at, if there have been any overspeeds, if there have been any overtemps, anything of that nature, and then we'll go do a sea trial on the boat.
That is correct.
Okay, so after we've done our EPE, the natural segue there, the natural question to ask is, how do we know if an engine qualifies for extended warranty? Because that's one of the great things that you have available. Do we have new engine? Do we have used engine? What are the different programs for extended warranty?
So the ESC, you can go ahead and it qualifies for extended warranty off the delivery date.
So extended service coverage is what ESC stands for.
Extended service coverage, exactly.
And that's for a new motor out of the box.
That's a new motor.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5 years, 60 months.
Okay.
After that, 5 years expire, the 60 months, depending on the months or the hours that you purchase, we'll go ahead and offer you the Advantage extended warranty.
Okay.
Which entails into an inspection, kind of similar to an EP, but more thorough. It's an inspection, sea trial, oil and cooling samples. But you actually have a longer inspection in the Advantage. We have to write the knots that the boat is going, speeding at. Yeah. So it's a little more thorough than the EP. We do more of a breakdown.
Is there any significant difference in the coverage offered between ESC, extended service coverage, and Advantage coverage?
No.
They're basically an extension of the same warranty parameters.
Yeah, that is correct.
So from a new engine, you can get extended coverage. The manufacturer's warranty is typically 12 months and X number of hours, or is it 6 months and X number of hours? What's the basic manufacturer's warranty?
The basic manufacturer's warranty for pleasure craft, it's 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
So our ESC gives us the ability to extend 2 years out to 5 years with additional coverages.
That is correct.
And then starting at the end of that coverage, we have the opportunity to go to Advantage coverage, which can be even 60 more months. Now, are there hour limitations on those coverages as well?
Yes.
Okay.
There are hour limitations. So basically you would contact me and I would go ahead and tell you this is the hour limitation that you're able to purchase. You can purchase 8,000, 10,000 hours, and it varies. So I'll send a customer, these are all your options. I would send them, these are all the hours, and based on how they run their engines, they would choose, okay, I would like to purchase this.
So basically we have a graph of options available to them, and they have the ability to choose what's going to work best for them.
That is correct.
So we've gone 5 years, theoretically, on ESC. We can go as much as 5 more years on Advantage coverage, and then you're left to your own devices, and if you wind up the SS Minnow on the shore of a desert isle, that's too bad for you, right?
No, you can also, when that time comes, we can also do what we call a top end.
Okay.
A top end. You can actually, when you perform a top end, you can go ahead and get coverage for a top end, and it would be kind of cloning what you had for ESC Advantage. It's as ship consist, so that's what would be covered.
So that brings us back to the conversation that Brian and I had earlier about OPC. Okay, so we have a full realm of comforts available to the owner of these motors as to whether, no matter where in the life it is, we have the ability to provide peace of mind.
Yes, that is correct. I think it's, for the customer or the broker, it's excellent to have these coverages, and it's worldwide. So you just need to call your local dealer, and if you need to ask a question, is it covered? What coverage level do I have? And we'll be able to answer that question right away and provide documentation if that's what it needs to be done.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Walter, was sea trial. When are we required to do a sea trial?
You're required to do a sea trial when you do an advantage inspection, and we'll go ahead and do a sea trial to determine the performance of the engine for it to meet the original Caterpillar specs on the engine.
So we got a nasty day.
Nope.
I've got a 60-foot sport fish boat.
Yeah.
I can take it out in Biscayne Bay and run it for my sea trial, and it'll meet all the demands that Caterpillar has?
No, it has to be a minimum of 30 feet of water.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So we have to have the proper conditions to be able to run.
That is correct.
And they want it to go in 30 feet of water because they want to make sure that the engine's doing all the work, that the hull form isn't what's helping them or hurting them, as the case may be. Maybe putting additional drag or giving it additional lift.
That is correct.
Okay. When are warranties transferable? Are they only transferable at the original manufacturer's warranty or in other places through the life of a warranty?
So the original manufacturer's warranty, which is 2 years unlimited hours, it is transferred then. It's transferable when you do new engine ESC, Advantage, OPC. It's transferred through all those.
So any warranty that's in place on an engine is transferable to a new owner. And how do we track that? Through the name of the boat, or what is it that Caterpillar wants to make sure that that warranty stays with that engine and that boat?
They go ahead and track it by the serial number. So
Okay.
by the serial number, the warranty stays with the serial number for basically the duration of the life of the engine. And all we do is plug in the correct information into our system, Caterpillar system, which will be able to send out letters or notify the customer your warranty is expiring. Please contact your local dealer.
Okay, so while it's, it could be seen as a great marketing tool to be able to get out in front of the owners again, the reality of it is not every owner is going to have it in his Outlook calendar, and while he's in the middle of fishing the Bahamas Championship, is he going to be thinking about, maybe I need to look at the extended warranty date on my engines. So by them providing that information to you, you're able to stay out in front of them and help them make sure that they don't drop out of a time frame that would cause them to have to do extra work to renew their warranties. Correct. Walter, thanks so much. I think now we have a really good understanding of the different warranty options for owners, whether it's a new engine, an engine that's a couple of years old, or an engine that could be quite old. So thanks very much for explaining that to us. And Brian, thank you so much for the time, for the support from Pantropic Power Systems, and bringing us up to date on what's going on in diesel technology today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're going to go to a commercial break, but one thing I want to mention to everybody is to stay tuned through the course of the week. We've got questions from the brokerage community that Brian's going to be answering for us on regulation and the future of diesel engines.
And that's a wrap for today. Yacht Engineering Week 2023 has been brought to you by our title sponsor, Pantropic Power, the local cat dealer, and our anchor sponsor, Robert Allen Law, the business of yachts. We would also like to thank our segment sponsors, Lürssen, Viking Marine Exhaust, Zemos, Marine Data Solutions, MPI, Bradford Marine, Dytech, Lewis Marine Supply, MPT, Tropic Ocean Airways, Ward's Marine Electric, Seabob, AquaBanas. We'll see you again tomorrow, 9:30 sharp.